to get into the business of the day, we are going to have a look at select and rather very common types of taxes that is applicable to so many businesses. And the first type of tax is the VAT. I'm sure you've all heard of VAT, right? Who here has not heard of VAT? We pretty sure have heard of VAT, right? Yeah, and so how VAT works is, this is tax that is levied on the value added on goods. Yeah, so you bought these goods, maybe raw materials, you've added a whole lot of value in them, converted them to finished goods, and then you're selling to a customer. Okay? And the classification of VAT, VAT is further divided into three classes. That is, you can either be dealing with zero-rated goods, and for the zero-rated goods, it's whereby you charge 0% of VAT on the same goods. And the second class is the standard-rated goods. And in this case, then you're supposed to charge a 16% of the value of the goods, and then you, of course, remit this to Kenya Revenue. The last class is the exempt goods, and for the case of the exempt goods, then you're not required to declare or even to register if you're dealing with this type of goods. And some of these goods include, if say you're selling animal feed. If you're selling animal feed, however much you make, maybe you're making hundreds of millions, tens of millions in a period of 12 months, then you're not required to charge any VAT, leave alone even do a VAT registration. So filing, then in this case, it's not a must. You don't have to. The other maybe type of tax I can mention is the corporate tax. And the corporate tax, this is the normal, long as you have a PIN, this is the normal filing that we do at the end of the year. Yeah, you're required to file your returns every 12 months. So then the period for the filing goes from January to June. But knowing the type of people that we are, this filing of course happens in which month? It happens in June, right? Yeah, but it's very important to know that you actually have from the month of January all the way to June. However, you can actually, if you feel that maybe this is not appropriate for me, you can actually write to KRA and then you have them change your calendar here. That is, your filing does not necessarily have to be in the month of June, 30th June, by 30th June. You can have them to have your calendar year run from maybe April to March. And then of course you have 6 months from March all the way to September to make sure that you file your taxes. And then of course it's, the next one is PAYE. For the case of PAYE, I think this one you're very familiar with. Of course this is, if you have a business and then you have engaged these people who are coming to you on a daily basis. Yeah, every other day they are reporting there, you're giving them the tools of work. And also, you're controlling their time. You can delegate, the duties and work to them. Then in such a case, you're required to actually register to be remitting PAYE, which essentially you're supposed to deduct from their salary. So then one asks, what do I do if I engage a consultant? Yeah. Of course, you will expect there's a very big difference between, this person who comes to your business every morning and this person who comes maybe once a week, maybe once a month, depending on the type of arrangement you have with them. And then what this means is that if you have engaged a consultant, then in such a case, you're not required to register for PAYE. Okay? And then the only thing you need to know that if you have engaged a consultant is you suppose, depending maybe now on the kind of activity this guy is doing, maybe you consulted him to say to do some training to your business. Yeah, so then that qualifies as a professional service, as a professional and training service. The only thing you're required to do is before you actually pay them, if you're paying them more than 24,000, then you deduct a 5% of the amount that you're paying, and you pay that as withholding tax. Okay? I feel this would be very, very much to most of us, is the turnover tax. So remember, I've said that every year you're required to pay your taxes, right? At the end of a duration of 12 months, every 12 months, you're required to file your taxes. However, there's a provision still in the law whereby if you feel the tax computation is getting a little bit complex, and sure it can be, then if you're a small business that is making between, in a calendar year, if you're making between 1 million and 25 million, then you're given a different provision to do registration for something called turnover tax. Yeah? And how you calculate, this is very simple because what you simply do is to say this month, supposing I'm operating a shop that's selling clothes, and then I can project that in a year, I'm going to make more than 1 million. So what you do is that you take your gross sales for that month without deducting any expenses whatsoever, be it rent, be it internet, be it telephone expenses, transport and all that. So you take your gross, and then you do a 3% of your gross sales for that month, and then you pay. Okay? Yeah, so you cannot be in the turnover tax. If you're registered to do the turnover tax, then you cannot be in the other, we call them regime. You cannot be in the corporate regime where you do your filing every end of the year. Of course, the good thing with the turnover tax regime is that, it's simple, right? Yeah, you say you're just taking whatever I've made for this month, I do a 3%, and then I pay. So we've actually witnessed a change in this because the previous rate was 1%, but now the Finance Act 2023 has now changed this to 3%, from 1% to 3%. The 1% had actually been introduced during the COVID season, to caution guide. It was one of the measures the government had put in place so as to caution guide against the effects of the pandemic. I'm sure you've heard me mention about the withholding tax. I've said that if you're paying a consultant, then you're supposed to withhold, right? I know this may sound a little bit absurd, but how withholding tax works is, first of all, to begin with, withholding tax is not a type of tax. Yeah, it's not a type of tax. It is a way of collecting tax. That's what we say. So say somebody has actually come and done business with you, and then you've agreed, for the sake of this, you've agreed that you're going to pay them with a particular kgs of unga, say 5 kgs of unga. Yeah, I've come today, I've done work for you, and then I want to pay you with 5 kgs of unga. So how withholding tax works is that if that particular person, say, had come to engage with you on maybe on training, so then how this works is you're required by law not to pay the 5 kgs to this guy. Okay? You do not give this guy the 5 kgs of unga. So then what you do, you use the applicable tax rate, mostly the kind of engagement most people have attracts a 5%. So then if you do maybe a 5% of the 5 kg unga, you may get it 1 kg, right? So then, how much are you going to pay this guy? Utampatia kilo ngapi? 4 kgs, right? And then, the 1 kg, what do you do with the 1 kg? You give it to KRA, right? And that is simply how we hold in tax form. So, at the end of the year, this is the person that you are actually paying. If maybe he had so many engagements elsewhere, 5 kgs from you, he went somewhere else, he made 5 kgs of bunga, which then would mean that he was paid 4 kg. The 1 kg balances that we are all left with and remitting to KRA is going to count as a tax credit. And the tax credit, it is to mean when this guy is doing the annual filing, then the 1 kg that have been deducted on the compensation that he's receiving will count as an advance tax. It's a tax paid in advance that they are going to utilize. Yeah? So then the 5% that you're actually deducting, this other person is going to benefit. It's not a final tax. And that is why I say withholding tax really is a way of remitting and collecting tax. So then it's important to note that it's important to be very much aware about, number one, the deadlines. What timelines am I supposed to observe? Yeah? What is the threshold of particular class of tax have I met, and do I need to start paying taxes? Remember I've said the law is stated in a very proactive manner. And if maybe we have a lawyer here, I'm pretty sure you've heard that ignorance is never what? Ignorance is never? Yes. You can say, no, I didn't know, and know that kind of story. KRA are going to be in your case. So the other thing you may want to observe is record keeping. Yeah, for all the transactions that you're doing, be it paying, if you're paying another person, all the expenses that you're incurring, maybe rent charges, maybe telephone bills, internet expenses. If you're buying fuel, if you are going into contract with people, then you're going to be required to keep these contracts for future reference. And the duration of that you're actually required to store these documents is 5 years. Okay? So remember, you're required to keep these documents for how many years? For 5 years. There is an exemption to that provision, whereby if maybe you KRA has found out that you're engaging in criminal activities, then you may actually be required to produce more documents beyond the 5 years tenure. And if say you have an engagement with them, they've come and they've done an assessment for you, or a property audit, or this is you've not been filing your returns, then even after the lapse of the 5 years, long as that case is actually ongoing, then you still are required to do what? To have those documents. So then, having given a very broad overview of what I felt would be, the taxes that would be very much applicable to us, yeah. So it's very important to be aware of, the kind of payments that would attract, that would compel you to withhold tax, yeah. And maybe just to mention, the most common ones usually are if you're making a payment to a consultant, far and above 25,000 every month, then, okay, not every month actually, but every engagement, then you're supposed to withhold a 5%. If somebody has come and done a training in your organization, you're paying them more than 25,000, you're supposed to withhold a 5%. Okay? If, like you're going to see later on, and I can as well actually mention this at this juncture. If you're paying for an advertisement, then as well, you're required to withhold 5%. Okay? Yeah, and this is why I was stressing the fact that it's very important to be very much aware about what kind of payment attract a withholding tax. What kind of payment am I going to make and I'm required to withhold tax? So the 5% on the marketing services, I remember this had been done away with. That is in the year 2019. The Finance Act 2019 had actually done away with the 5% to the marketing services, but then again the Finance Act 2023 has reintroduced the 5% requirement to withhold. So it's very important to keep abreast with the tax changes, tax laws, so that you can avoid future penalties and fines. Again, if you're the person who does crypto trading, that is, you trade in bitcoins, you trade. What other coins do we know apart from Bitcoin? That's true. Yeah, that's true. There's the WorldCoin. Which other one do you know?
What about fungible tokens?
Sorry?
The tokens.
Even tokens as well. You're talking of? Okay, fine. Okay, that one I don't know, but it's a type of coin. Yeah. Yeah. So then, if you're the person who is operating this kind of platform, not you as the trader, but if you're the person who owns this platform, any other sale that somebody makes, you're supposed to pay a 3% of that. Yeah. It is not on the profit that this guy makes, but on the value of the trade, the value of the exchange. So at 3%. So this has been introduced in the Finance Act 2023. The other thing that has elicited a lot of debate is eatings, right? We all have heard of eatings, right? And so eatings. Yeah. So eating is an advancement of teams. Only that for eating, we know there's a device that you're supposed to acquire so that you can actually generate invoices. So what eating has come to do is to do away with the teams and as well provide a very friendly manner of operating it. Because in eatings, for small businesses, what you only need is a phone. Yeah? You're only required to have a phone. But then again, before it's actually activated, you have to make an application with KRA so that they can activate. They can actually activate the portal for you. And the good thing, like I have said, is that for eating, it is actually web-based. You can either use a phone or a laptop. The two are enough. There's no device whatsoever you're required to acquire. I'm pretty sure you've seen these devices, right? Yeah, even on in supermarkets, in some instances, even in some transport companies. I believe they come to you and ask for your numbers and then they generate these receipts. So this is getting done away with. So now what is going to happen is that somebody can actually generate these invoices on their laptop or their phone. And I want to stress that it's very important to get this set up on the go. Yeah? Because if you get the customization wrong when you're setting it up, then you're going to be having too much back and forth with KRA, having them to do an overhaul of the entire system, and then having them to install a new system and all that. So it's very important. There is classification of goods. There's a classification of codes. We call them harmonized codes. So you're supposed to get the correct code of the goods that you're dealing with, so that you can generate the correct invoice. The next thing is we've all heard about people who are now going to be paying taxes at the rate of that 5%, right? That is, if you're making how much per month above all? If you're making above what per month in Kenya shillings? If you're making 800,000 above, then you're going to be charged at 35%. And if you're making between 500 and 800, then you're going to be charged at 2.5%. And of course, in a figure below that will be taxed at the graduated, the 30%, and all those kind of and all those different rates. So this is a little bit interesting because how many guys do we know that make more than 800,000 per month? Yeah? The number really is very few, and the motivation behind this is that the thing with PAYE and why it's always a target by Kenya Revenue Authority is because of the ease of collecting it. Yeah. So you find, since the obligation is on the employer to be deducting PAYE, and if they don't, they are going to be penalized. Then you're having people do the work for you. You're having the employer enforcing the law for you. You now being the KRA. Yeah? And that is why you find in most instances, PAYE usually is a target. And it's not a coincidence that the amount collected annually, the biggest contributor usually is from PAYE. Yeah? The biggest contributor to the national kitty in terms of taxes contribution is usually PAYE. The other thing is the housing levy. I'm pretty sure you've heard of this, right? Yeah, I think Ayub alluded to this when he was saying about the 3%, the 1.5%, and all that. And it's true. The initial design of this, of course, we've heard, or maybe we've heard, that the real intention was to have this being a fund, whereby after a given number of years, the amount that you contribute can actually be refunded to you, right? That was the initial conversation. But now this has since changed, and also the rate of the contribution has been reduced from 3% to 1.5%. And the 1.5% for the people who have employees, it is a 1.5% of the gross pay. The best way for small businesses, to ensure compliance and all that is, be brave and seek for advice. Be brave and ask for advice. Yeah? Don't just go out there and do things for yourself. You may feel that perhaps involving maybe a consultant would be too much, but then again, remember, you're saving for what? For the future. You're saving your future resources. And, the simplest way, again, to ensure that you comply is something that I mentioned when I was giving a broad overview of the taxes that you're supposed to be aware of, and that is keeping records. That is, it sounds simple, it sounds something that you can actually overlook, but it is one of the most important things you can do as a business. And I can't stress this enough.